Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to a wonderful episode of the Bone Club. With us tonight, I have Jenna,
Hey,
who was with us last. Were you with us last week, Jenna, or were you
I
gone?
was not. I was celebrating Canadian Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you were celebrating Canadian Thanksgiving, so you were out. But this time, Stephanie's gone. She's traveling around, and Jenna is with us today. We also have with us a rather sharp left turn from normal. We have two individuals with us, both Brett Robinson and Nick Oldrieve from Please Bring Me Home, neither of which are anthropologists. They work with an organization that brings attention to and helps search for Canada's missing persons, long missing persons. So Brett and Nick, welcome to the Bone Club.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us in.
So I guess where I want to get started, normally we ask our guests what got them into forensic anthropology, but I guess for you both, what got y'all interested in this, in searching for missing persons and organizing Please Bring Me Home?
Sure, I'll start. So I'm Nick Oldrieve, and I'm the executive director and co-founder, and it was really started, simply put, to cause commotion around historical missing persons in the hopes that they could be located. And that kind of graduated to organizing searches and the amount of pictures of bones I've taken and sent to you, Ashley. It's kind of remarkable that I still cannot even tell you anything about what I'm looking at when I send you pictures of bones. It's always been this: more can certainly be done, and the family should not feel like there is nothing happening on their missing family members' disappearance. There should always be something happening. It should always be treated like it happened yesterday.
And my name is Brett Robinson. I'm director of case analysis for Please Bring Me Home. So I oversee our investigative team, which is generally acting as a sounding board for our 20-something investigators that we have spread across Canada. I'm a business person by trade, but academically, I lean more towards investigations work. I have master's degrees in profiling and behavior analysis and counseling psychology. I'm a registered psychotherapist and a private investigator as well. I joined Please Bring Me Home, it's 4.5 years ago, I think now, mainly because my mom had seen Nick on W5. And I was starting to investigate some cases on my own. My mom saw the program, referred me over to Please Bring Me Home. I had an interview and joined as an investigator. At the time, I closed the oldest case we had closed, which was 14 years, I think, at that point. A gentleman disappeared 14 years ago, and I found him alive and well in Toronto, which was the best possible ending. And I was hooked on doing missing persons cases. Initially, for me, it was a thrill to try and find these people, but then I began speaking with the families. And when you see the pain, the trauma, the fear that they have, then it became something a little deeper for me at that point. And I became a real advocate for those families, to draw attention, as Nick said, to the cases, to push those cases forward as much as we can, work with police, work with the public, work with the families, and hopefully bring the best possible conclusions that we can for these families.
So what got you both, Nick, what got you interested even just in the very beginning of, hey, this is something I want to do?
I've been asked that so many times, and it boils down to curiosity. And this is called the Bone Club, and I'm a bonehead. I get attached to an idea and I become curious about it. That's kind of how it started. I became curious about Lisa Moss, who went missing in July of 1988, local to where I grew up. And I had a soft spot for it. So it started with putting an ad in the paper, just, with Lisa's father's blessing, that if someone knows something, just say something. And it wasn't even to come to us, it was to go to police. But what happened was people started to come to us instead of police. So we said, okay, well, let's open up an anonymous website for Lisa. We built a website overnight and started to get tips in. And then W5 happened and more families wanted help and more people wanted to join. And that's kind of how it turned into what it is now. It was never the intention to be this nationwide organization where you have all these members and are assisting all these families. It started off with a curiosity for Lisa Moss, and then it just really blew up because no one should, be told no if they're a family member seeking help for their missing loved one, ever. So we mold it into what is needed, I think, is at the end of the day. And that's kind of where, more things change and Please Bring Me Home grows and we become better every day. I still 10 years down the line, almost 10 years down the line, am learning something new every day about investigating a historical missing persons case, searching for somebody, rewriting some policies and procedures like you and I talked about a couple months ago. Like there's always more to be done. That's for sure.
If I was, say, a family member who someone in my family's been missing, and I contacted you, what is that process and procedure for you guys?
Yeah,
that
so
you have from first to last?
Yeah, so I'll get you up to the investigative side and then I'll let Brett take it from there. So family member, so you fill out an intake online. It used to just be 3 questions. Now it's like 20 questions, and we get a lot of information on the missing person. We have an intake officer who then reaches out to the family member who filled out the intake and asks an additional 20 questions over the phone. These may be a little bit harder. You don't want these questions. You don't want the family to have to fill out these questions online. You want to be the one asking them and them telling you and you typing it in. And these are, some more difficult questions to type in for family members. So they fill that out, and then, Brett, myself, and another director offer our thoughts and observations based on the intake we read. It gets filed, and then it gets put up on our social media and on our website, and then ideally it gets assigned to an investigation team member, and then Brett can take it from there.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind is we have, over 100 cases, and we have, just over 20 investigators. So not every case can be actively investigated. Sometimes they are in an extremely difficult to reach location that requires a physical search, and we don't have the human power to be able to do that. But the cases that are assigned to investigators that we begin investigating, it's really up to the investigator to determine the path that we're going to take. With a missing person, really the person could have ran away. They could have passed away in an unknown location due to misadventure, drug overdose, suicide, things like that. They could have been the victim of foul play. And so determining which way we're going to go is critically important for the investigator to make that decision. Myself, as I said, I'm a sounding board. So the investigators will reach out to me to help determine that direction they're going to go in. I've had the privilege of looking across, over 100 cases, and I've seen what has worked in certain cases. So I can ideally recirculate those pieces of information back to the investigator to help inform the direction that they go in. And one of the hardest things is maintaining objectivity. We all get attached to, what we think is going to be the thing that leads us to solve this case, particularly when you first start, and that's myself included. The first search I went on, I was going to find the person and probably every other person that ever disappeared. I was going to find them all in one search. And guess what? That didn't happen. And for the most part, it takes many, many searches to be able to find anything. And by finding, I also mean eliminating areas, which is a critical piece of information for us. But overall, I work with the investigators to determine the investigative direction. And then, is it going to require physical search? We have a director of search who helps plan that out. So if we are going to search a certain geographical region, We have to, set the boundaries on that, organize a team to do that. Are we going to use a cadaver dog team or search and rescue dog, for instance, or we're going to do a grid search? All of these different things go into planning, but it starts with the investigation. One of the most critical pieces of investigation is the ability to pick up our cell phone and call people. Critical. And over the years, we've learned that investigators that are comfortable doing that and being told to not call back and maybe sometimes still calling back, that's a critical piece, because the vast majority of, other than a person disappearing in a wilderness area, the vast majority of cases that we've closed are come through tips, through people giving us information, and the ability to solicit those tips is important for us, not just for the actual person that we're calling, but because they then talk and tell people in their community that I spoke with someone from Please Bring Me Home, and that can drum up memories. It can drum up a willingness to speak with us. And we spend a lot of time on the phones, speaking with people, monitoring blogs, responding to tips that flow in through our websites and other places. So all of that blends together in the investigative efforts that we put forward, as well as connecting with police. Police is generally a one-way channel of information, in that we give police information and not necessarily a lot comes back to us, but we understand that that's the nature of it. And our investigators are all taught to make contact with the detective that's in charge of the case right away.
When you start that investigative process, I know, and you mentioned that discussing with police is a one-way street, but is there a way to look at records, talk to them, see what has been done in the past, so that you sort of know, what's been eliminated, what hasn't been eliminated. You have some sort of foundation to go on. And when talking with, the people in the community and getting that information from people within the community, does Please Bring Me Home have a way of sort of sifting through, in essence, a level of credibility within that information?
Right. Well, I would say our credibility with police has been growing over the years. Nick, myself, and another director presented at the Center of Forensic Sciences to the OPP's working group of missing persons police units. I believe there was 25 different police units that were there. There were over 50 police officers. And we presented there. At the time, we had closed, I believe it was 24 cases. Up until that time, our current number, I believe, is 38. And that's something that police forces can't deny. Now, many police that we work with are fantastic, love working with us, are very, very open with us with what they can be. So when we're working with police, they are far more likely to be open about where an area has been searched. If we searched, east of the river, let's say hypothetically, and that information is typically, police are more willing to speak with us about it. Obviously, in other cases, no, they're not going to tell us hold back information that they may have on a homicide. That's not going to come up, obviously. But in terms of physical searches, we find that police, particularly in with police forces that we've worked with, understand that we do have some strong capabilities. We do conduct really effective searches, and we can help eliminate areas that they either don't have the resource to search or can't necessarily get permission to search. Again, we have a far lower threshold to engage on a search than what police would. So we can just discuss it amongst ourselves and agree, yeah, we're gonna search this area. Police might need to jump through a lot more hoops than us within their chain of command to actually execute something like that. And they appreciate that we're going to go do it, and they know any evidence we find is going to be handed over to them right away. Now, police can't ask us to do anything. That would be a liability issue. That would essentially be deputizing us. And they can't ask us, hey, Please Bring Me Home, can you search this area? However, they can be, are generally grateful that we are out in the field on physical searches. And they respect our professionalism when we're doing interviews and such. Police ultimately, if there's any type of foul play suspected in any of these disappearances, they want to present a prosecutable case. All right, they want to hand over the evidence to the Crown Attorney here in Canada, and they want to get a conviction. And in that regard, the efforts we put in, they are more nervous about because they worry that we're going to trample over somehow some part of the investigation. To the best of my knowledge, that's never happened, and we have advanced dozens and dozens of cases for prosecution. But in the sense of looking for a missing person out in the, let's say, in a geographical region, police tend to be very open with us about the areas that have been searched, and we're grateful for that. That allows a type of unofficial teamwork. It's not official teamwork, but it is unofficial teamwork.
Yeah, and on that, I always like to refer back to Eric Spencer, who went missing from Thornbury, Ontario, and uh, was last seen in Honey Harbor, Ontario. That's the very first time that the Ontario Provincial Police gave us access to previous search maps. And we were able to look at that and come up with a reasonable degree of possibility that we could locate Eric if we followed one type of strategy. And we did. We ended up finding him after 90 minutes of searching by sticking with the strategy we came up with because we saw this map. So that has been a basis of argument when we're going to other detachments asking for the police searches. Like, look, it worked here. Why wouldn't we do that here? Even if it's possibly foul play, just let us know um, where you searched. If they're not going to give us the maps, we can talk about Jack and Lily Sullivan briefly, but we're going to go up and do a search for the two missing kids up in Nova Scotia this upcoming weekend. And that although they didn't share us maps, we've had very good communication with the RCMP, where they've been able to give us information on what was cleared and when it was cleared. And they've also released some of that information to the public. And it's been fantastic from a search planning perspective, where we want to focus our strategy on. And I would compare it a lot to the strategy we're focusing on when it came to Eric Spencer. So,
do you have, and maybe this is something you might be able to get in the future, hopefully, a relationship with medical examiners' offices, coroner's offices, to when you begin searching for a missing person, to inquire if there are any sort of unidentified individuals that have been that are on the books in a given time frame for what you're looking for. So maybe this might be where we can also look. Was there an unidentified that was brought in, and just look there, and also can start doing other investigative areas as well, or is that an area that is still walled off?
Well, we wouldn't say it's walled off, Nick, would you say?
yeah, I wouldn't say it's walled off. I think it really there's kind of a two-parter there because you know in the initial investigation there's a few steps that the investigator really needs to accomplish, and one of those steps is looking at the identified remains data, like looking at what is up there for identified remains. Could it match with your missing person? That's something that they need to do really in the beginning. And some of the other steps include talking to other family members, communicating with law enforcement before you even really get out there and start your investigation. These are things that need to happen. The other part is when we're searching an area, are there other people who've gone missing around this area that we need to consider as well? Are we really just looking for someone who went missing 3 months ago, who had a pink backpack and was wearing a winter coat? But should we really truly be focusing on also older remains that could be in those woods? So there's kind of a two-parter with that. In terms of communicating with coroner's offices, it's been touch and go. Sometimes they're great with communicating back and forth with, and other times not. It'd be great if we could have some type of policy around where we can ask these questions, they can give us information. again, in the effort to just locate the missing people. I wouldn't say it's walled off though. Yeah, I think it really just depends who you get on the phone sometimes. Can't remember the name of that guy out in BC, Brett. Um, the last name, Oscar Reyes. And a lot of that, why that ended up being so successful in the end, it was a search team that was recommended by law enforcement, but some of that was through the communication that Carrie, one of our directors, had with the coroner's office there, and relayed to law enforcement. And I can't remember all the details, but I mean that was one of those moments where it's like, see, if we all do work together and we take away as much of the red tape as we can, it's more apt to be more successful. We're not here to hinder anything. We're only here to assist without police asking us to assist.
And so you work with police, and you try to work with coroners as best you can. But I understand that your teams are built up of primarily volunteers.
Yes.
So what are some of those, what are the skills that your volunteers are bringing in? Who are you looking for when you're bringing these teams together to kind of like build these search teams or build these investigation teams?
Yeah, for the investigation side, it's not one particular type of person or one particular walk of life. Now, obviously, if someone is retired law enforcement or something like that, that's useful, particularly if they have connections within law enforcement. But we've met people who are retired law enforcement that would have the requisite skills that you would think, and this work doesn't go well for them. So we really look for people who can make contact with other people and are comfortable speaking on the phone, that have the resilience to be told, I don't want to talk to you, and then to call back. That's huge, to be able to do that. Some people only want to do research behind a keyboard. And while that's great, we see documentaries on where, mysteries are solved through behind a keyboard, but in reality, that generally doesn't happen. You need to have the ability to reach out and communicate with people to maintain objectivity. That's huge. I mean, you have to aggressively explore multiple investigative avenues that are diametrically opposed or mutually exclusive. Only one of those things happened, or maybe none of them happened. I would say most importantly is resilience. Cold case work is like being on a raft in the middle of the ocean, and you're going to start paddling and you don't actually know if you're making progress towards where you're going because you don't know the direction that you're supposed to go in. So it can be very, very difficult. Work requires a lot of resilience, and you're generally going to meet with, from an investigation side, you're going to meet with a lot of failure along the way, and you have to be able to handle that. And that's critical. But people from Please Bring Me Home come from all walks of life. All genders, all walks of life, all ages. There is no one particular, archetype that we're looking for to be a good investigator. It's more like they have certain traits about them, but those traits don't come from one, demographic or walk of life or something like that. It can be from anywhere in society, which is great.
Well, 100%. It's just and the three people who started Please Bring Me Home, I went to school for social service worker, and I work primarily in traumatic brain injuries rehabilitation. And Matthew's a journalist, and Melissa is a hairdresser. But it is that, so it's that foundation of resiliency. And then when more people applied, people like Brett and other directors, and they had that same level of resiliency, and we don't focus terribly much on of course it's important, but it's not like we see someone who says they haven't worked for 10 years or whatever, and we're like, oh, we don't want that. It's quite an interview process now. You got to fill out 5 questions. Like, it's really changed over the years. I think when Brett applied, it was probably 3 questions and a coffee, and then
We're
and
off
then
and running.
off and running. Here's the case, have fun.
Yeah.
And that works for some people, but we've certainly found now that you answer 5 questions through email. You just got to answer 5 questions. We're initially looking at how much care do they put into that. Are things misspelt like so much? Was it 3 o'clock in the morning? And was certain questions at this stage, do they repeat themselves? We're looking at that. And then, okay,
Did they answer with
Let's
3 words? I mean, not really.
yeah.
I mean, think about if you applied for a job, like a non-volunteer job. I mean, would you actually just fire in a couple of word answers? Probably not, right? So why for us are they, if someone writes in extremely casual responses, is
Yeah.
that really the type of person we want? I would say no, and I would say we have 100% track record of those people in the past not working out for us.
Yeah. And so now if we're like, okay, I like this person, I like what they've said, let's get them to stage 2. Stage 2 is a little bit more intensive. You get 22 more questions sent to you. You also need to give us your police check, your resume, and some references. Show us that you're really serious about this. And then if we get all that in, then we do an interview over Zoom with 2 directors. And then if we like you after that, then we offer it to you. And then we really get in depth with that person. This is what to expect if you come with us. And then we're trying, we've liked your first answers. We've liked your stage 2. We've liked your stage 3. Now we're selling ourselves to you. This is what we do, and this is why we want you. They've already done the hard work, so now it's our turn. And then we run them through an orientation. The first month is a little bit of hand holding when they come in to make sure it's not really just giving a case anymore and introducing them to family. It's really having this solid support system from the 3 main directors. And then once they're ready, okay, now if you have anything further, Brett is your guy. You go to him if you're stuck. If it's excelling, Brett's your guy. And then because he, like he says, he oversees all the cases. Myself, Carrie, and Brett are able to, but Brett has seen more in depth what has worked on cases and what has not. And that's why that direction from him is so vital to the other team members.
So, you have these investigators. When out doing your physical searches, though, how do you have more than just investigators? There's more than just those investigators involved in doing physical searches. There's more than just investigators involved in that team. How are they brought into the fold?
Yeah, we have consultants. So there is one gentleman who assists us, and it's people you meet as you go out this please bring me home growth process. So there's a person who I would go to and say, hey, I really want to put a freedom of information request out for this case, anything on this case. Can you help me fill that out? There's one where, you know, this person went missing. We just did this actually. So this person went missing in October 1985. Can you try and track down some aerial photos from as close to right before they went missing and as close to right after they went missing and then a year after they went missing? And they can go find that stuff. I cannot. So, that's a consultant. They're, Dr. Arnfield is someone that we communicate to with a variety of our cases. Hey, what do you think about this? Or this is what I'm running into. Or do you think these cases can be connected from like a suspectology and criminology standpoint? Um, Forensic, we'll never have anyone on a search that finds any bone unless it's definitely an animal skull. 9 times out of 10, we take pictures and we send those off to you, like a forensic anthropologist to review. Um, we have retired members of search and rescue who were master searchers with the OVP that will say, here's where we're thinking of searching and here's why. What do you think? So there is a lot that goes into, we always say it's never just as simple as looking for a missing person.
Yeah.
There's so much that goes into the thought process and building the case to get to the search area. Why do you want to search there? What makes you want to search there? You really have to talk our search director into, she's never heard about it before. Why do you want to search there? Sell it to me. And then we build the team to go out and do it.
And then also, do you have, particularly on a little bit larger sites, do you bring in, say, just volunteers from that follow your website? Can they come and assist if there's a larger search? Is it just you guys and some cadaver dogs on occasion? Does that take place, or?
Well, if it's a search with cadaver dogs, it's typically just like the investigator and the Black Tracks team, at least in Ontario, that we use. We use a number of other teams at other places, but we try and keep it to as few people as possible. So the dogs, the dog handlers, perhaps an investigator or two, and that's it. Whereas if it's going to be a grid search, obviously it could be large. Nick has ran, I think, the largest ones that we've had, where we had multiple teams of 10 to 20 people each out there. It was quite an operation that we've had out there.
It's one of my bigger regrets, but yes.
One of the issues with a grid search is you'd be surprised how hard it is to walk in a straight line in the woods at only a few feet apart, or let's say up to 6 to 8 feet apart, depending on what type of search that we're doing. I've personally walked behind the line just trying to keep a group of 10 or 12 people going straight, and they don't. And we end up leaving gaps, and we have to backtrack and then start over again to eliminate that area properly. So, ideally you'd rather have 8 to 10 people, all of whom have done many searches, are trained, whether they're off-duty police officers, which we get a lot of, off-duty firefighters, but people who can walk a line. Having a 50-person line is not useful, because they're
Impossible.
not going to walk in a straight line. You're not going to eliminate the area. You have
Yeah.
to, you would rather have 10 people that are really good at what they do and just go 5 times, over that same distance. It'll probably take you less time, actually.
100%. It does. It 100% does. Been there, done that. We had 200 people do a search for Lois Hannah, and the worst feeling is walking away from that search that took so long to plan and organize because 200 people showed up, and then walking away not confident that it was properly cleared. So you have to go back anyway. And at least if you're going back with people that you've built your routine with around the searching, you trust that, you really walk out of there with that level of trust that it's been cleared properly. I tell you, we went out to do a search in Brockville, Ontario. 30 people were supposed to show up. 3 of us drove down from Owen Sound, and not one person showed up. And it was it felt awful that no one from the community came, and we just drove 6 hours. But I'll tell you, it was such a good blessing, because the amount that us 3 were able to clear in 2 days was probably more than we would have been able to accomplish with these 30 people, 27 of which have likely never searched before. So yeah, it completely benefits. And but in saying that, I'm going to devil's advocate myself. Jack and Lily Sullivan coming up. We can't just depend on the 3 of us going down to complete the areas we want. The difference with this one, though, I would never do a public search that's going to be a grid search or a line search. But if I'm going to call on volunteers that are just walking in ditches off the road or walking alongside a creek or river, that's different, because that's a lot more difficult to mess up and miss. If we're just wanting to catch up something that someone has fallen in the ditch and passed away, or someone has washed up along a water's edge, you can send really, you can kind of take your pick as to who walks that. So other than that, the grid searching and the line searching does not work from a clearing confidently perspective, as it does walking ditches or waterways.
A couple of times we've put out requests on different searches for the community to come, and we've had to be clear, like, you must be physically able to walk through the woods. And unfortunately, people come that I'm just like, you just can't make it through the woods. I know that. I can see that from you. We've had people come who, I mean, they're on crutches or they have walkers, and I'm like, well, you can't. You don't normally walk through the woods, do you? Like that?
Yeah, we've had a girl come in heels. We've had a guy come without arms before. Like, no, both of his arms are gone. And we're like, yes, you can, like, we're grateful you're here because you can walk through. But if you go down, like, you need to have something. You got to use your hands when you're searching.
We had a guy who had a triple bypass like a few months before and wanted to see if he could make it. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to do that on your own time because it's not, we're going to be looking for you out there, right? So anyway, watching
And Jenna
the
and I are
searches-
over here sitting like, yeah, we've experienced this before. Especially the fact that no one can walk a straight line.
Yes.
It's shocking. It's shocking.
I've said it's true. Like I've said to people, I'm like, if you're walking on your search and you see yourself going past people, it means you did it wrong, right? Like just if everybody's walking in a straight line, nobody will pass each other, right? By definition, that's how it works. And yet they're doing hard 90 degrees in front of other people. I'm like, no, you're like, you hate to kick people out, but
If you
sometimes,
notice that your neighbor is no longer your neighbor, now you've got an issue.
yes, it
100%.
happens. For sure.
And like Brett said, it works the best. Someone has to be designated as walking behind the line on every search. You have to.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and you're not there to search. You're there
to keep them in line.
just keep them straight and overcorrect. It's okay to overcorrect and sound annoying. I tell people that every time. I'm going to be annoying, but we want to do this right. We don't want to have to come back.
Have them behind, and you walk beside and behind and beside and behind, beside and behind, beside and behind. It is amazing.
Yeah. So line searches are something we know well, and that is a skill that we hopefully acquire in our training.
We teach them.
We try.
Well, we try to teach them.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is a skill that, I mean, ideally you could have 30 trained forensic anthropologists to come in for that, but it's probably not reasonable. So at what point would you, in an investigation, decide, okay, now is the time, we need to pull in the big guns, we got to bring in someone like Ashley?
Well, so I think there is the likelihood that about this shoe, because if we find a bone on a search, then OPP and it's determined human, OPP or law enforcement are going to come in and take it over anyway. But with this shoe of possibly Lisa's, I would likely, come springtime, want to organize something like that. We have been through this bush, okay? We have not completed the whole thing. It's taken 3 years to get to this point where we are maybe 100 feet into the bush, maybe. And that's because we've gone so painstakingly slow and raked every single thing in front of us as we go. So it's been a multi-year clear, but now we found a shoe, and it's, we find it, we GPS it, and we contact law enforcement and say, hey, I want to back up. This place is the place that forensic anthropologist Lita Wadamanuik, I think I'm pronouncing her last name right.
Yeah.
Recommended that we clear next. And this is back in 2019. And she recommended this is the next place we need to clear based on where her car was found, based on where the hunters found this shallow grave a year after, and all the above. There's a bunch of stuff. So we began clearing it, of course, and it's taken so long. But anyhow, we find this shoe, and the first thing is contact law enforcement. I said, do you guys want it? It's just a shoe. Kind of their thing with Lisa Moss's case right now is call us when you find a skull, or it's clearly human, call us. So we found a shoe. It's a, can't even tell what size it is, but it's very decayed. It looks like it's been chewed on. So the first thing we did is, as soon as police said they don't want it, we found a shoe museum in Toronto, and we communicated with them, and they agreed to look at the shoe. We hand delivered it. And, they said it's a size 6, roughly, women, definitely women's, and it's a Reebok. And then they got back to us with the 3 types that it could be. So now, Lisa was a size 6. It's a white shoe. It's a women's shoe. It fits. It was manufactured between 1985 and 1988. She goes missing in 1988. So many things are pointing to that it could be her shoe. But we went back and we did a quick scouring around to see if we could find the other shoe that could give us more detail, anything. And we haven't been able to do so. So the answer to your question, that would be a prime scenario where I would want trained forensic anthropology team to come down and completely clear those woods, especially location around the shoe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard because that's one of those, really, you can't say it is.
Mhm.
Can't say it isn't.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I say, okay, well, what if it just falls out of somebody's backpack as they're back there hiking? It's not a hiking trail, it's the middle of the woods. Um, yeah, again, that's just it. You go
And
into it wanting to debunk it, but we can't.
no,
Yeah.
And on the topic of resiliency and needing resiliency for this job, I actually did work with Please Bring Me Home back in 2019, helping Nick look for Lisa Moss. We went through a big old crevasse and pulled out just tons and tons of garbage. And he is still, I can tell, still very passionate, still gung ho to figure this one out. I'm sure you have a ton of other cases that have crossed your desk that are shiny and new and distracting, but you're dead focused on this, and that's really cool.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's we all have our case that is going to stick with us, right? I know Brett has, if not one, two, or three, and I have a few. Lisa Moss is certainly one that she's the first, case that I learned the term cold case from reading her a little bit about her case. I'd never even heard it before 2016. And then, it is one of those, and yeah, you get these new ones that come across your desk. And yes, they do need to have a little bit of your focus, because we also like to work on a preventative measure from time to time, as long as it doesn't take away from the historical work that we do. If this person is believed to have drowned on Lake Huron via the Saugeen River, we know we only have a few years to likely locate his remains on the shore until they get, completely washed out. So we don't want that to come across our desk in 5 years and they'd be like, we really should have done something in years 1 and 2. So there's a lot of cases like that come up.
And we do have ones as well that have, unfortunately, no evidence whatsoever. That person disappears. Nobody saw, nobody knows anything. And you talk to everyone and of course, some of them might be, 30, 40 years old. And so you re-interview everyone and there's just not a single piece of evidence anywhere. And it makes it very difficult without anything to jumpstart the case.
is it harder? I know we've talked a lot about missing persons and the concept of, people who disappeared, people who may have met foul play or some sort of misadventure. Does it make it harder for those who, I don't want to say disappeared themselves, but sort of run away, things like that? And if and when you do find them, is that even a little bit more on the difficult side, in that, hey, we found this person, the family has asked us to find this person, maybe they don't want a reunion with the family?
That's right. That's a really good question. In fact, the case that I saw that the gentleman had disappeared for 14 years, he had no interest in his family, and so we kept his location completely. We didn't disclose that to the family at all. I did let the family know that we had found him, and of course they wanted information, all that, and I said, no, he has no mental health issues. He has no warrants on him, nothing like that. I verified through the police that it was him. And so, he has right to disappear if he wants to. And so that's something where we maintain, the secrecy. I did let the family know though that we had found him. They were thrilled. They were overjoyed, just the fact that they knew he was safe and alive and well and all that. But and that's something we have to watch with these cases, right? People do have a right to disappear if they want to, right? They've not done anything wrong. And we want to maintain their privacy while also bringing the case to a close, because they are, missing persons wanted that are being looked for by the police. We do want to bring these closure to these cases, but we definitely maintain the privacy of the people who disappeared in the cases that it has been a runaway.
Yeah, that has happened from time to time with Please Bring Me Home. Michael Samdas is a good example, and this is actually not a bad segue into, if we want to talk about onset for a moment. But but Michael Samdas, he and on this too, we really didn't know. Did he walk away and pass away? Did he run away? Could he have been met with foul play? And as someone who works primarily in brain injury rehabilitation, he got in an altercation outside of a bar, and then it was like the day after that where he went missing. And it always nagged and wondered if he did get a brain injury. And I'll let Brett talk a bit about the facial, open source stuff, because that's his thing. I know nothing about it, but I can tell you that an investigation team member, we just decided to run faces through this open source system, and one kicked back, and it was a mugshot out of Florida. Didn't match the name, but there was just some tiny details in that face that looked like it could have been him. And sure as shit, it was him. And this was what, 2 years down the line, 3 years maybe?
Yeah. Oh no, he disappeared. Did he disappear in 2000 and was it 19?
Yeah, like it was a few years down the line.
It
And
was 3 years, at least 4 years, up to 4 years. He had
yep,
disappeared. Yeah.
he had no recollection of his life in Canada at all. And I do, I think he sustained a brain injury from that altercation, but he took off, and he made some very poor choices in the States, by the way. But he was in jail, and, we were able to confirm, connect the Florida Corrections Department with the Hamilton Police Service, and they were able to compare the fingerprints, and it was him.
So that's one of our investigative tools, is we make use of facial recognition software, which is very useful, particularly when there's a very solid chance that the missing person has run away, right? That is the number one reason people are classified as missing, is that they ran away. And the difficulty with that is that, when you interview a family, if a person in your family ran away, you were probably some sort of contributing factor to that. Now, I don't mean directly. I don't mean you threatened to kill someone in your family and they ran away. I just mean maybe it's not a happy home, right? Now, there could just purely be a mental health issue, of course, but people don't want to open it. They don't even want to open their mind to the possibility that that person ran away. And in fact, most of the people with the families that we deal with, when the person hasn't come back, it's because they were killed by a serial killer, and that's what the family believes. They unconsciously deflect generally anything that they could have contributed to that. And as I said, if a person has ran away, there could be some contributing factors that have no relation to the family, but generally, the family has contributed to that runaway. So we facial recognition software is a fantastic tool, one that police are starting to utilize, but it's in Canada, it's generally deemed as an invasion of privacy in a lot of different ways. So there's very, very regulated ways in which they could use that, but not so for us. So we find people regularly using facial recognition software. And this is all open source, by the way. It's not invading anyone's privacy. It's a picture up on the internet. Most of the subscription-based softwares do not search even the social media feeds of people. So if you have a Facebook feed, it's not even going through that feed per some agreement that the software company has with Facebook. So it's, someone posted on a blog, and then it finds it. So really, it's an efficient way of locating images on the internet. After we had found a few people, bits and pieces of evidence, I decided to run the entire RCMP's database of 900 and something faces of missing persons, and I found over 100 pieces of evidence that I submitted to police. And these weren't just missing persons; they were in some cases it was wanted persons. So the BOLO list and such in Canada. But I found that none of those cases were actually closed, despite quite a bit of evidence submitted. Not every picture, of course, would have been the person, but in many cases, I think it was definitely them. So I formed a second group, like a sister group to Please Bring Me Home, called Onset Investigation, which is focused on wanted persons. So we've run the FBI's most wanted list, we've run the BOLO list in Canada, and going kind of department by department, looked at their wanted persons, and we've already located dozens and dozens of criminals all over the world. And that could be for murder, for sexual assault, for parental abduction, for just evading a warrant, or breaking parole. It could be for a lot of reasons, but we're really proving that facial recognition software is a really useful investigative tool. We make it standard practice within Please Bring Me Home. We run all of our cases, the 100 and something that we have up there, we run them on a monthly basis, just in case. And this is ones, even when we're sure someone, fell off the side of a canoe and drowned, we still run them, just in case that person didn't swim to shore and, go live another life somewhere. We do try and find them. I've even found people off of in the witness protection program that I then had to not release for obvious reasons. So it's an investigative tool that we've added to our arsenal of techniques that we use, and it's become automatic procedure for us to run all of the faces of the missing persons on the database.
Very
Do
cool.
you use a standard sort of like published protocol to, we don't really use the term match in forensics, but to include or exclude individuals?
It's tough. There isn't I would say, a specific protocol, but what we do is we run on multiple platforms to see if the platforms agree. Obviously, if they have a distinguishing feature, they have a mole, they have a injury, they have a, something about them that is a tattoo, obviously, something that is completely unique to them. But I'll tell you, in utilizing the software, there are some astounding lookalikes. I remember we were told as kids, everybody has a twin somewhere in the world. I actually starting to believe that, because we found people that it must be the person, and it's eliminated. It is not the person, but you're like, how? And then we've actually found some matches which we're not sure about, which turn out to be the person. So the software is by no means infallible in any way. It's getting better, of course.
Have you searched for your twin?
I haven't, but I did look for different members of my family, and I did find people who were
Okay.
shockingly
Find mine. Find
yeah.
mine.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fascinating stuff, and it is a useful investigative technique for us, particularly for as I said, we run on all the cases, but a lot of our people have just simply run away.
Yeah.
To sort of jaunt, as we're coming to a close, jaunt a little bit to the right, and then I have one last question after that. Right before we started recording, there was a conversation we were having about press coverage and social media coverage, and I was wondering, do you notice, particularly in Canada, I know here in the United States, one of the things that I find absolutely infuriating is when you have a missing persons, when you have a kidnapped persons, a common trait that we see within the press and within social media is, if they are a young blonde female, it pops up everywhere. It's the thing that absolutely consumes the news cycle. But everybody else rapidly gets pushed to the bottom. And I'm wondering, with Please Bring Me Home, and particularly in Canada, do you notice something similar? And I'm thinking specifically with missing and murdered Indigenous girls, now that you work all across Canada and you have teams in BC and in Alberta and in the Plains area. Trying to think of the word there. Fly over Canada.
Yeah. We do see it. I think it's, I know that we at Please Bring Me Home don't do that. We make sure we give everyone the same attention. And we're mindful of that. We've done a lot of stuff on Lisa Moss, and if we're approached on doing like a documentary or a special on Lisa Moss, we'll typically try and promote another case that hasn't gotten the same attention. And that's important. Everyone deserves the exact same amount of attention. I think we saw it with Samuel Bird recently. I think it was Saskatchewan, if I'm remembering right, but he was evidently found, and it was believed he was murdered. And I'll tell you, that family is an inspiration in that regard, because this was not a young white female. This was a brown, native, indigenous person to Saskatchewan. But you could just see that the country surrounded this family with so much love and stuff, and it was great. And I gotta say though, that was like the first time that I saw something like that in a long time. Because before that, it was Gabby Petito. And I mean, we all know who Gabby Petito is because it took the media by storm. But around that same time, maybe a few months prior, there was a younger native lady that went missing, and I had never heard of her. And it's like, how is that possible? Why is this? It's a problem. And a lot of it is what people, it's just the way I think society is, unfortunately, is that they're going to click on something that's been already viewed a million times versus something that's only been viewed 10.
And thankfully we have on the Facebook site 35,000 people, followers on the Please Bring Me Home site who are fantastic about sharing and posting things and talking about it, which is huge. That allows us to give everybody, all of our cases, kind of equal airtime, if you will. We typically post on the anniversary of the person's disappearance or their birthday or something like that. So it's a regular cycle where all of our cases are going out there. But yes, to your question, there's definitely disparities in media attention. Now, of course, there's a chicken and egg thing there. Is that the fault of the media for putting things forward, or the fault of society for latching onto certain things? What's coming before the other and such. So there's definitely, as Nick said, there are cases that just get so much attention all the time, that we get called to comment on, that we're filmed on, that we're in documentaries on, happens all the time. And then there are other cases which fall by the wayside. Nobody pays attention to them, and it's really unfortunate. We really latch on to those cases and try and put them in the public's eye as much as possible, but it is definitely a problem. I would imagine everywhere. We're speaking from the Canadian perspective, but I would think it's an issue everywhere, and ideally these cases can be brought to light for everybody to comment on and for everyone to remember. Not just the memory of the family, for the family's sake, to recognize that this trauma that people have been through is, all these families have been through this trauma, but also because they might remember something about the case. They might have talked to somebody, they might have heard something. And as Nick and I always say, no tip is silly. We want every tip to roll in. And again, we do get some ones that are of less evidentiary value than others, of course, but we want people to feel comfortable to call us or to email or contact us anonymously, which they can do at Please Bring Me Home. And yeah, so it's a problem, and we hope it'll course correct over time.
Sounds good. And one last question. Are there sister organizations that you know of, either in the United States or the United Kingdom or in Europe, Australia, globally, anywhere? And are you in contact with them? Do you sort of work with each other to better what you all do in your respective areas? Or is Please Bring Me Home sort of an aberration, just this one-off thing?
Let me tell you. So Brett knows exactly where I'm going with this, because I would love nothing more than the kumbaya, all these organizations that have the resiliency and the passion to find missing people to work together.
Yes.
And I went into that so naively, because I'm like, of course people are going to want to work together. But I have been like gobsmacked over the amount of issues that we've had trying to partner with other organizations like us. So we've just become, we are the only one of its kind in Canada. We're the only organization that takes on cases asked by family and, organizes investigations of it, and then does searches on it, and then does media exposure on it. There's no other group out there in Canada that does that.
And is a registered charity.
A registered charity. I should say that. Law enforcement, by the way, obviously does that, but we're the only other organization that we're not bound by any, like, well, boundaries. Like there's no red tape. We can knock on someone's door. We can ask permission to do a search. We don't need a thing in writing. It's just, we have the cadaver dog here. Can we just go into this? We have the GPR machine here. Can we go scan your backyard and just get out of your hair? We don't have all the stuff to go through, but I'm trying to think if there's other organizations. I mean, I'm sure there is.
I think there's
I
other
mean,
ones that do aspects of what we do. They'll do
yeah,
an investigation, or they will, be like an outdoor search group that works with police, something like that. But in terms of a
yeah,
full service agency, I don't believe there is anything like this definitely not in Canada.
yeah,
That works with this. We work with some really incredible, as we talked about before, consultants and partners, right? We work with Highlands Tracking, which is led by a master searcher from the police who does a brilliant job in outdoor search. We work with Black Tracks Canine in Ontario as part of our cadaver dog team. We work with Karen Somerville and her team out west, and several other different search and rescue teams, cadaver dog teams, those types of things. And it's been incredibly valuable. We work with a GPR group, Steve Watson, who's been brilliant working with us. So obviously we work with you, Ashley, and so all of these brilliant consultants that we've had, each experts in their own fields, we kind of work with everyone together and pool everyone's resources to get the best type of outcome. But in terms of groups out there that do what we do, I don't believe there's a full service one in Canada.
yeah. And I mean, in speaking of search groups, Osarva I don't know if Osarva is still around. I know there is of SARDA now, which is Ontario Volunteer Association dog, like it's about dogs. And early on, we had Osarva canine members come out to do searches for Lisa Moss, and it was fine. They didn't need to jump through hoops, they just came. And then, they said, oh, we can only come out when police ask us to. And that's very similar with a lot of search and rescue groups. They have to be. And even if we go to police and say, hey, can you please ask this group, A, can you just release them to us for this day to let us, use them for a search? They're trained. Or B, could you just ask them to do it? And the response is no, we can't ask them now because you asked us to ask them. And I'm like, pfft. But if it's a podcast or something, like we've heard canine searches from Osarva or of Zarda happening through podcasts, and it's not police asking them. So it's like the rules are consistent. So that's why we end up just creating our own. Like we found black tracks, we found forensic anthropologists to look at bones. All I need to do then on my end is to get people who can walk through the woods for hours at a time and be intelligent enough to know I should take a picture of this and send it. I need to mark this. I know the task. I need to do that. And as long as those things can happen, then we use the consultants for the other stuff.
And lastly, for anybody that needs to send in a tip, that needs to, they want to know more about your organization, what is the website for them to go to? What is the Facebook and the website for them to go to?
And are
So
you
just
actively taking volunteers?
yes, all the time. All the time. Like, don't be afraid to join. So the best place, your one-stop shop, is just to go to pleasebringmehome.com. You're going to see a recruitment section if you want to apply. You're going to see a tip section to send anonymous tips. You're going to see an intake section if one of your family members are missing. You can also find us on Facebook under Please Bring Me Home, Instagram, and X. Our anonymous tip line, 226-702-2728. You can email us at tips@pleasebringmehome.com, recruitment@pleasebringmehome.com, intake@pleasebringmehome.com. But if you want to remain anonymous, your tip line, that tip line number I said, or going on our website and clicking submit tip are the best ways to ensure your anonymous wishes are honored.
All right. Well, with that, I want to thank both Nick and Brett for joining us this wonderful evening. It's been a real pleasure on my end to both have you here on the Bone Club and working with you both with Please Bring Me Home. And Jenna, having you finally back with us as well.
Yeah, glad to be here. And thank you so much for the work that you do. Just a blanket statement for humanity and for Canada. Like, thank you. That's really important. And it's amazing that you guys care. And you put in so much effort to find these people because they're loved by someone, right?
They are.
Thank you guys very much, and thank you guys for what you do. Accepting the call from us to help us conclude some of these areas and clear these searches. We truly couldn't do it without you guys either. So thank you for having us, and
Much
thanks for what you
appreciated
guys
for your
do.
work. Mhm.
All right. Well, to our audience, thank you all as well for joining us, and we will let you know what we're going to be doing in December as December gets rolling around. So, thanks everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Hello, friends. We here at the Bone Club understand how difficult it is for students to break into the field of forensic anthropology. To help with that cause, we have decided to monetize in a way by setting up an account with Patreon. All proceeds will be donated to the anthropology section of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences to help alleviate the cost of attending an annual scientific conference for students. If you can, we have set up 4 membership tiers with patreon.com/theboneclub that range from $3 a month to our patrons of the bones at $15 a month. We hope some of you can join us in this worthy endeavor of breaking down the barrier of cost that keeps many students away from these important conferences. So if you can, please join us at patreon.com/theboneclub. Thank you, and may your skeletons always be complete.